You're a freak. I'm a freak. I'm a freak too, and you're a freak. Yay! Let's be freaks together. From movies to video games, welcome to Marie Plays It All. Today's episode is a deep dive with Jose Ramos. How are you today, Jose? How are you?
I am good. I am good. Can't complain at all. How about you?
I'm good because I'm here with you and we're going to talk about movies, which we love to do.
And don't forget, it automatically levels up whatever mood we're in. We're still in spooky season.
Oh, yeah, we are. We're
That,
like right
that's
in
a,
the midst.
yeah, that's an automatic like power up.
Mhm.
It's like when in the game when you get that extra cloak that's gonna add +5 to all of your stats. It being
Yeah,
spooky season is an automatic +5 to wherever our day is at.
that is so true. And that is why we're talking about a spooky movie. Well, a spooky but also hilarious and genius movie called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Now, listen, Jose is the one who recommended this movie to me like a year ago. Did I listen? No. I don't know why. I have a list, I have a big long list of movie recommendations that I'll get to, but I should have listened to Jose sooner because this movie is a treat. For those of you who don't know what it is, let me read you the quick synopsis before we dive into it. Okay, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon is a 2006 horror comedy that blends slasher horror with mockumentary style, offering a unique twist on the genre. So basically, the film follows a journalist and her crew that are documenting an aspiring serial killer who models himself according to slasher film conventions and is directed by Scott Glosserman, and it stars Nathan, how you pronounce this? Basil. Anyway,
Basil sounds good.
ba- yeah. And Angela Gothals, and I last Gothals, I think is how you pronounce it. And last time I saw her in something, she was her name Linny McAllister in Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin's sister in Home Alone.
Oh, I didn't even remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly I don't remember much of the siblings. I remember Macaulay
Yeah,
Culkin. I've seen that movie so many times,
you know.
and it's like, except for the annoying like older brother, that's the only one that still sticks in my mind. The other siblings, do
So
without them.
many. There's
Yeah,
so many of them.
yeah. I would have
Well, she's in
forgotten
it.
them at the house.
Yeah, those ones. Yeah. She would have been left at the house, but she's in this movie, and I think she does great. But anyways, Jose, you know me, and you knew that I love like mockumentary type, found footage type movies, and you knew to recommend this to me. It was a smart choice, but I didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't listen sooner because I absolutely love this, and it also has cameos. Well, actually, not only a cameo, but kind of a. It's not a co-star. What is he? He's like Robert Englund's in it. Okay, and he plays
Hmm.
he's like a play on Dr. Loomis essentially in
Yeah.
Halloween. That's kind of what they're paying homage to with him. But when I saw him, I was like, how the heck did they get him? And then there's also a little cameo from Kane Hodder. There's a little cameo with him. This little low budget found footage movie. How'd you get these big name horror icons?
And with Robert Englund, I was not fully surprised. Like, if you ever see Robert Englund in the interview and you see him talk horror, this man absolutely loves horror. So I am not surprised that they threw this idea at him and he wasn't like, yes, put me in. Like, even to this day, right now, where he finally, I'm sure, against every fiber in his body, had to be like, I can't do like Freddie anymore. Like physically, I can't do it anymore. And I can tell there was pain behind those words for him. So even at this point, he still couldn't fully close the door. He was like, now if they do like where I could do like voiceover, like a high-end animated one, things like that, like he's down to do it. Like he just has a love for horror, especially old school horror. So not surprised that he would jump into it regardless of the budget. You're more likely to see this, and you do see this more when it comes to the genre of horror,
Yeah.
where there's more of a sense of community created between the people who have acted in, directed in, like just been part of that horror world. There seems to be more of that mindset of like, hey, let's share, let's join up together, let's do this, let's play homage than a lot of the other genres. So I don't know if you agree with that, but that's something that like I feel you don't see too much with other genres.
Oh, I 100% agree. You see it all like on social media too, like the amount of like horror pages and everyone coming together and sharing each other's stuff. And it's like a little, yeah, it is a little community because like if you're into horror, there's something about it where the passion is so real and deep, and it makes you feel so connected to other people who love it, who share that love with you.
In essence, it's if you like break it down to put it really simplistic to it, it's stories about violence and in general, yet it tends to be one of the more welcoming communities in there, which is it's an interesting contrast.
Yeah, it's like you're a freak, I'm a freak too, and you're a freak. Yay, let's be freaks together.
One thing we can touch on, because you kind of already started it with who they had in there, is I feel one of the things that I really enjoy about this movie, and like as you watch it more times, you kind of catch a little bit more, is, and this has been a complaint of ours from other movies, is it does a good job of balancing that homage aspect and that nostalgia aspect and that connecting back aspect without it feeling forced. Like it naturally integrates into the world where you're still like, oh, is that a connection to this? Oh, is that a connection to that? Oh, that's kind of like this, but it's not being slapped into your face where, oh, you're like, oh my God, it's everywhere. So, this is something
Coming from
that,
all sides.
yeah, it kind of all times. Like, what is going on? This is not the movie I signed up for. I came in for a job interview. Uh, this movie does that very well, where, multiple viewings, I catch new things where I'm like, I wonder if this is a callback to this movie. But it's so subtle that you have to consider, like, is it not? So I feel that was it. So maybe we can get into some of those things that we caught that we were like, hey, is that a homage? Is that a connection? This links back to this horror movie.
Yeah, let's do that. And I think what helps too in this movie is that right in the beginning, it's documentary style, and it you learn that the world that the movie takes place in, all the horror movies that we watch and love, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday 13th, Halloween, it's all real. Like Michael Myers is a real guy. Freddy Krueger which is kind of funny that he's a real guy, but then Robert Englund's in it. And so right away, I thought that was something different that I haven't seen, where it's like actually they're real serial killer stories that have taken place in this movie. So I loved it right from the get-go. That like hooked me in right away. I'm like, that's interesting. That's something new.
Yeah, and they even use some of the actual locations where those movies were filmed. So
Hmm.
we see the Elm Street house. Funny enough, we see it how I mean, I think now it's back to red, but for a while there, one of the homeowners of there, I don't know if it's the current homeowners or not, but some in the past, I think probably because people were bugging them too much and being too intrusive, they actually painted the door like green. It
Yeah.
wasn't red anymore. And I think in this we actually saw it as green, so it was during that time frame. But it's back to I have visited that house multiple times after this movie was made, and it's back to red in there. So that, and then we see the Halloween house. We see that there too. Again, to drive in the point that this exists in that world. Not only does it exist in that world, these characters are like well known, like icons, where in a way this supernatural like healing and all of that stuff is it's like a sport in a way. It's a career. It's a
Yes.
career that you choose and you work for, and you have to work hard to get through. And I thought that was an interesting take, where it isn't just like someone waking up and like, "I'll do this." It's like, I'm going to make a career out of this, and you have to build your storyline, do all this. I thought that was a great take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how serious Leslie, the Nathan Basil, the actor who plays him. Let's just give him a shout out quick
Yes.
because this guy's so good. He reminded me his mannerisms a little bit and the way he was acting, his type of like comedic delivery reminded me of Ryan Reynolds a bit, but almost more natural than Ryan Reynolds in a way. I don't know. I think he, for lack of a better word, kills it in this role. How did you feel about him?
No, that I agree 100%. I think he's one of the driving forces in this movie. And he, like you said, he sells it well where it's believable that he is this character. And, for him, it's not so much about the act itself of the eliminating of people. It like, this is what he's worked for his entire life. Like he really
Mhm.
pushes like this is my job, this is my career in there. And I think that aspect he sells very well. And the other part that he sells very well is what is one of the major characteristics that historical serial killers have been known to have. What is one thing that people associate with serial killers when it comes to how they act, how they interact with people, is charisma.
Mhm.
So, serial killers are known, they not all of them, but some of the big ones are known to be very charismatic characters. And that's what allows them to kind of, get close, let people's guards down, is their charm that they have. And, he brings to this character a level of charm, a level of charisma, where even though you know what he's doing, even as a viewer, your guard kind of gets down. So it's believable that this cruise guard will get down to the point where they actually believe there's like a friendship relationship like type aspect there because of that charm and that charisma. He plays that very well.
Oh, you kind of root for him. You want him to succeed in a way. Like you feel so in it and you can almost like see his point of view and you're like, yeah, fulfill your destiny. It's really well written and performed. I honestly through most of the movie is like rooting for him. I'm not thinking like, oh, these poor people. I'm like, yeah, get them, dude.
It's literally like always going to your favorite restaurant and loving the food and always eating the food. And then it's like, here's your chance to go kind of see how the chef is doing it. How is he preparing these great films? This is what this kind of was for, people who grew up with those slashers and those supernatural killer movies, is what if we were to go back into the kitchen and kind of hang out with cook that's preparing these meals that we've loved and see how he does it. And that's what this movie is the journey behind the curtain, where again, people like Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, it just reminded me of like when I'm having sports conversations with people and we talk about the legends, we're basically Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, they're like the Michael Jordans. They're the Tom
Hmm.
Brady's of this world. And the way he was talking about the way they were talking about him is kind of like how I've had sports conversations where like, oh, you should have seen Brady in his time. Michael Jordan, he was killing it. That's kind of how
Yeah.
they're talking about this here. So
Yes.
that's the way I see it. It's like we've enjoyed all of these type of movies in the past, and it's like this movie is like, we're so VIP, we're gonna go meet the chef and we're gonna see how the magic happens.
That was like the perfect analogy, by the way. That was
Thank you.
so good. Yeah, it was perfect, Jose. Did you come up with that off the cuff or did you have that written down?
No, no, that was just right now.
Just as you just like au naturel, just going for it. One of my favorite things about this movie, I mean, everything's really good, but one of my favorite things about it, it basically is giving explanations at the same time as it is poking fun at the horror tropes. And it almost like gets into an in-depth reasoning as to why certain things happen in horror movies, like deep poetic type writing metaphors, like the closet being like the womb, that you're the if you go and hide in a closet, you're like protected in it. How it has to be a virgin, and when she reaches for a weapon, it's like a phallic object, and she's actually grabbing like his manhood and like and claiming her womanhood. Like I just thought all of this was so, and that's her becoming a woman, right? I was like, is this really, like, is this true? Like, is it really what writers are thinking? Because if it is, then I think it's all brilliant. And if it isn't, then it's brilliant for the movie to put it in there. Like, I thought all of that explanation for like why there's certain beats in horror movies all the time was just genius.
No, I agree 100%. The way it explained things out in a way, so it kind of grounded those worlds in reality. Like there's still the supernatural aspect, but it grounded it in reality. Like you're speaking about the symbolism and all that aspect. It created in a way a code of ethics when it comes to this profession. When we watch those movies, is okay, they're on a mission to eliminate people, they're just gonna do it. But here is like, no, there's a method to the madness, there's a code to it. When he gets upset, it's like basically saying like, no, they get in the closet, we can't touch them. Like we gotta respect the code. Like you said, that's the closet is like a womb, it's protective. So in those movies when we see they're hiding in the closet and it's like they look at the closet but they never actually search the closet. Again, it grounds that in reality where it's like, okay, they probably know they're in there, but gotta respect the rules, the codes of ethics, the weapon aspect of reaching to it. Like if they're preparing it beforehand, but they could easily eliminate any weapons that could threaten them. But that's against the code of ethics. You have to make it harder, but you do leave some weapons in there. So you want to give them a chance in there. So that with the symbolism. There was also the birth canal
Yeah.
symbolism with the exit. So that aspect I liked also very well, how it builds a world of rules, grounding these worlds in reality in a way.
Yeah, and I will admit that since watching that movie for the first time and then watching other horror movies after, I think about those things now when I'm watching horror movies. I'm like, ooh, she's gonna go get that phallic object, or oh, for safe go, she needs to go get into that womb. Like I'll think about it because I'm like, oh, Leslie Vernon taught me a lot. There's like depth to this movie and darkness in the movie, but it's also really light and funny. It kind of takes like all these different type of genres and like melds it together like pretty seamlessly, I think.
I have found myself watching these horror movies and be like, oh, that's the Aham. That's the
Yeah,
Aham right
yeah,
there.
the AM, yeah. Seriously, this movie teaches you a lot. It's very educational.
Yeah. I mean, besides the symbolism itself, again, continuing on the grounding of reality, it gets into actual like strategies and how some of these killers do what they do. Like for example, you see when they visit his home, Leslie has all of these training books, survival training books, like so he's actually having to like work hard and study and learn all these skills. We did on our Tuesday show with Kevin, we did a Friday the 13th like franchise recap. And one of the things that we discussed is, wait, how did Jason learn all these skills? He supposedly drowned as a kid. Where did he learn basically like archery and spearing and like how to use all of these weapons and all that stuff? He seems to be proficient as a hunter. How he learned all these stuff. Then we go here to this movie and we see that in this world that includes them, these killers are, like us with any profession. They're learning, they're reading books, they're studying, they're practicing.
They're training physically.
I laughed so hard the first time I saw that part where it's like, how hard it is to make it look like you're walking while they're running full speed, that you have to make it still catch up with them. So you have that, they learn magic. So while certain aspect looks supernatural to people, it's a magic aspect. The training to look like you're dead. Like we see with Eugene, where he spends time slowing his heartbeat in a casket to make it look like he dies. And we talk about horror tropes of the killer's never fully dead.
Oh
So
my
those
God.
things were great.
Yeah, so Leslie has a mentor named Eugene who's like a retired serial eliminator. And he's married. You know me. I'm like, "Oh, this serious this man who eliminated so many people found love. She was like his final girl, and she understands and respects his lifestyle." It's so
They're so supportive, aren't they? They're all so supportive.
yeah, because it's like a real thing to take seriously, like being a Michael Myers type. Like it's like a role that they take very seriously. And yeah, when they did the whole like he's buried in the casket thing, slowing down his breathing, that, and then when it shows Leslie getting his like makeup on to get put his mask on, and he's putting on his makeup, and what did he say? What's there's something, it's like a concoction of stuff that he's putting on his body that has like a fire repellent type thing in it. So
Yeah.
whenever you've seen horror movies, like the killer's getting lit on fire, and you're like, well, how are they not burning? It's because oh, they have this stuff that they put on, and then also there what it was in it,
Bulletproof vest too.
bulletproof vest. There's some other cream, I forget what it's called. That he puts on so that you don't bruise or you don't bleed as easily or you don't like, and it's just so smart because you think this when you're watching horror movies, like, well, why isn't he bleeding? Well, why isn't he burning? Well, why isn't he doing this? It's like, oh, now they're explaining it to you. They're making it realistic for us.
These writers went through and they're like, okay, what are all of the tropes? What are the things that people yell at the screen? And they were like, all right,
Mhm.
how can we explain these away? And overall, they did a really good job of explaining all of that away. Which, by the way, because I know you've seen the movie more than I have, when Eugene is talking about the good old days and how the game used to be different in the past where there wasn't this like coming back, you just hit hard one night, and he makes a reference to a sorority. Is that a Black Christmas reference? He makes a
Ooh.
reference of wiping out pretty much a sorority in like one night. And I was like, wait, is that a Black Christmas reference? Like again, those little subtle things where it's like, all right, you're connecting to these like classic movies.
Okay, so that is a connection to a classic movie. What other connections did you find in this movie to other classic movies? Because I found a couple that I was like, oh yeah.
Well, what was another one that you found?
When Leslie's putting on his makeup, getting ready for the night, the song that's playing on the radio in the background is Midnight, the Stars and You, which is in the last song in The Shining. In The Shining, when it's that
Oh.
playing and it like focuses in on the picture and you see Jack Torrance in the middle, the New Year's thing, that's the same song that's playing in The Shining. Oh yeah, and in the beginning it has the Rabbit and Red Lounge, which is from Halloween, the match book,
Mhm.
book that they have. That's all I can remember, I
Yeah.
think.
No, and that's the thing. That's what it does so well, and it's not overtly like too much when they're presenting these things. It blends in well with the scene, and in a way that is so subtle that you might not catch it the first time, but then the second viewing you might catch it, and the third viewing, you might catch it. Like that Black Christmas reference. The first time I didn't really catch it. I was kind of going through it, and then as I watched it again, I was like, oh, wait a second, like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, it's so good the way it balances because
I
we
know.
complain so much about movies on how they use nostalgia as an easy way out a lot of times, and they over focus on member berries instead of their own story that they're trying to create to differentiate themselves. That recipe is just it's too uneven. It's too overwhelming towards the nostalgia than the actual story you're telling, and your main story gets lost in there. And then that's a problem that we get a lot now with horror, where sometimes it feels like people are running out of ideas and they're just reverting back to, hey, this worked in the past. Let's just over homage this thing. So this movie didn't do that, and I think that's why I like it so well.
Sometimes it's like, yeah, we get it, like we get it, like enough callbacks, enough this, but this did it in such a seamless, brilliant way where it didn't feel cheesy, or like you say, it wasn't coming coming at you at all directions. You're like, too much. I can't take this.
Yeah.
What other notes do you have, Jose?
One thing I think in just moving into the directing style of this
Mm.
movie, one thing that I like is
Oh, wait.
actually it's funny. It's one of my favorite things of another movie that we discussed off screen, which was the Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Is part of this is kind of like a mockumentary in a way. So when we're in mockumentary, when we're behind the curtains, kind of figuring it out. It's filmed like it is a mockumentary. It's not very cinematic in any way. It looks like you're seeing a found footage like type movie. But then when we're seeing him in action, when he's putting into action what he told us he had planned, and we see it, it switches to a more cinematic look. It gets a little, the tones get a little bit darker. In there, it's not as grainy and it's a little smoother. And we see it as if we're watching a horror movie from the style. And it switches back and forth and it differentiates, it creates that separation between the mockumentary part and then the horror movie part. And I think it does that very well going back and forth.
I don't know how that was my first note. That's my very first note. I don't even know how I missed it. That is one of my favorite things about it too, because you don't see that in a lot of like found footage mockumentary movies. Like that's just like not something that I've seen. And it's so perfect as a mockumentary. Everything's done so great. It's filmed perfectly, directed perfectly. But then when it does that switch where it's like, no, now I'm watching like an actual movie, then the music kicks in and like everything, it switches tones perfectly. And that is one of my most favorite things about this movie, 100%. And I'm so glad you said it because if we didn't say it, I would have been so upset with us
Okay.
because that was a brilliant thing.
On top of that, I honestly I feel it was a good surprise how things I'm trying not to give away too much in case someone wants to see. It was a good surprise the way things turned out at the end.
Mhm.
It was how it played out at the end was not how I expected it the first time I was viewing it, where I was like, "Oh, did not expect it to go in that direction, but I like it."
I won't say it either, but I agree with you. I think this movie, like front to back, is like chef's kiss. I forgot to mention too, there's another horror icon in this movie, and that's Zelda Rubinstein from Poltergeist, the little woman who
She's the
Caroline, like she
librarian
has
in
that little
this.
yeah, she's librarian. So I was like, damn, they got some good hard hitters in this movie. So
Yeah.
it makes you feel like it feels familiar. Like this movie gives you something completely fresh, but it also feels very familiar and cozy.
What I like about this movie, and if you disagree, let me know. I like that for anyone who is a fan of old slashers and that type of horror, like you said, it makes you feel cozy. It makes you feel at home. It's very recognizable. In there, you have a lot of. It's like that meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Leo DiCaprio, where he's like and pointing at the screen, it makes you feel like that when you're watching it, when you get these little connections where they talk about things that maybe you've complained about in horror movie and they're explaining away, you're like, right there, right there. So it does that well. But I also think that if you didn't grow up with those movies and you're not a fan of those movies, this movie can still stand on its own two legs because again, it doesn't over rely on nostalgia. It tells its story and lets it stand on its own. So I think if someone fresh comes in, they can still enjoy it without getting every single reference.
And I think that even if you don't get the references or if you're not like a deep like horror lover, it can make you appreciate horror movies more because it made me as a horror lover, it made me appreciate it even more because I was like, "Oh, is that why they do all these things in horror movies?" And this is explains everything. So, I think you could appreciate this movie coming like no matter who you are. I hope so because I think it's
Yeah.
well deserved of appreciation at the very least.
Yeah, this movie deserves more love, more attention. I remember I originally stumbled across it by accident. You know,
Mhm.
I had never seen any trailers pop up, anyone like really talking about it. I just, you know, was looking for something I hadn't seen. The synopsis seemed interesting, and I watched it and I was like, wow, like haven't I heard about this before? So like I feel, it's one of those gems needs a little bit more love than what it's gotten.
The performances are all some of them are amazing. Some of them are okay, but like no one's terrible in this movie. And like for a mockumentary like found footage type thing, that's rare. The main lead, Leslie Vernon, is incredible. I think he's just amazing. I think it's genius. I think it's hilarious. I think it's there's like some gore aspects to it. It's confusing because you're rooting for everyone in this, kind of,
Mhm.
except for maybe some of the teenagers in it. You're like, eh, but I mean, like it's weird how it kind of convinces you to like root for the serial offers, you know? Like it's a great movie. And another thing is, if Jose ever recommends a movie to you, just watch the damn thing. Just watch it. That's what
I
I've learned.
guarantee you're gonna like it, but there's a chance you might find the gem.
Yeah. I have a couple little behind the scenes facts, some fun facts here.
Oh, hit me.
Yeah. The movie was made on a modest budget of around $250,000. Despite this, the
Wow.
filmmakers were able to create impressive practical effects, demonstrating creativity with limited resources. 250, yeah, $250,000. Is that so? I've never made a movie before. That's pretty low, isn't it, Jose?
Yeah, no, I mean, especially with budgets ballooning for movies the way we have it now. Yeah, especially and also having these cameos in
Mm-hmm.
there too. So you didn't go
Mm-hmm.
completely unknown with all the actors. Sometimes, you have to go completely unknown and fresh to try to lower the budget of it when it comes to like the casting aspects with it. So that is actually a really good budget for a movie. And I think if you were to release that now in the theater, it will more than make its money back. Not saying it's
Yeah.
gonna blow up the theater, but it'll more than make its money back.
And it makes me appreciate Robert Englund and everything more because they didn't get paid a lot to be in this movie and they just did it because the love of horror, which is so sweet. Also, another fact, the movie was filmed in only 23 days.
Efficiency.
To prepare for the role of Leslie Vernon, Nathan Basil studied other iconic horror villains and researched serial killers, trying to find the right balance between charm and menace. You were right. You felt that charm. You like charisma. You knew.
In the little times you would see him switch like in the third act, you see it switch when his mask gets removed, but it's like he has this blank stare where it's like he isn't there anymore. Like he's so in the zone, so into the character of what he's doing that he's like completely blank. Again, that's the having the menace and then having the charm throughout this movie.
And one last thing is that some of the dialogue in the film, particularly between the banter between Leslie and Taylor, was improvised, contributing to the natural chemistry between the actors and the film's quirky tone. So a lot of the banter between the two main characters was improvised, which again, I just love that. I love it. So natural feeling.
And I could definitely see that. There was a few times with Leslie, how he will react to what was said, usually in a comedic like response, and it just seemed very naturally how you would respond to someone who said that.
So listen to us, listen to Jose, and now I'm recommending it too. If you haven't seen Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, please do it now. I don't know. I think you can rent it maybe off Prime. In America, it might be free. I watched it for free on YouTube in Canada. So I wish I rented it. I could have rented it because then I could give them money. But like honestly, this movie is great. Please watch it like ASAP.
I agree, 100%. It's just if you are a fan of those old 70s, 80s, like slasher, supernatural slasher movies, also check it out. It's a good, entertaining, blend of both comedy and horror, and a good balance of nostalgia and a good, stand-alone movie itself.
And it's a fresh idea, but it's also cozy and familiar. I think it's probably it may even be it's definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. I'd say. I don't even know where it loses that one other point, but 'cause there's no sequel yet.
Part of me was like, I want a sequel, but then part of me is I kind of like that it like stands on its own.
Yeah.
But yeah. So watch it.
Mm.
It's not super scary, so you won't have to go into the womb of the closet to like hide or anything like that. But it's just great. It's entertaining.
Thank you for watching this episode of this deep dive with Jose. You can find more of our content on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and let us know down below if you've seen the movie and you love it. If you do not like it, we still want to hear why. And if you haven't watched it, go do it now, right after you stop us, just go.
We're gonna be watching quietly from outside of your window to make sure you actually watch it. So watch it.
Yeah,
So if you hear that the leaves moving or the brush outside or little tappity tap on the window, it's us confirming that you're watching it.
that's all. Nothing to worry about.